Okay, so now we're going to switch to a company that's actually doing some interesting things. Jason Illian is the CEO and founder of rethinkbooks.com. Write that down, rethinkbooks.com, a company who's trying to transfer the reading experience into a social media experience where you can share your book, you can talk to your friends about it, you can be interactive with it. He's raised over $30 million for various online ventures and new business ventures, and he's been on ABC, he's been in the New York Times, he's written an interesting book called MySpace MyKids. He's a published author, venture capitalist, brilliant thinker. I've known him for a number of years. And before he comes up, there's a little video we want to show you about Rethink Books. And after that, we'll welcome Jason Illian.
There's once a man who dared God to speak. He said, burn the bush like you did for Moses, Lord, and I will listen. Tear down the wall like you did for Joshua, Lord, and I will fight. Still the sea like you did at the Sea of Galilee, Lord, and I will follow. So the man sat next to a bush near a wall by the sea and waited for God to respond. And because God so loved the man, he did respond. He sent a fire, not for a bush, but for a church. And he tore down a wall, not of brick, but of sin. And he stilled the storm, not of the sea, but of the soul. And then he waited for the man to respond. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited. But because the man was looking at bushes and not hearts, bricks and not lives, seas and not souls, he saw nothing. And he looked up to God and says, God, have you lost all your power? And God looked sadly down and said, Son, have you lost all your hearing? I think we've lost some of our hearing when it comes to higher education, and particularly Christian higher education. You know why? Because I think that there's something bigger there, that so many times we let the general media, the general secular public go first on what we're doing. Now, my company, Rethink Books, you got to hear from some of the industry leaders, right? You've got to hear from Apple and Cisco and Mo ran the publishing world, and then, Rethink Books? Like what's going on, right? So first of all, you're probably a little bored, so apologize about that now I'm on stage. But what you need to hear about this, about what's happening, is that there's a true digital wave coming, right? And for us not to lose our hearing, I think it was appropriate that Mo had said beforehand that probably the last time that Christians were ahead of the curve was the printing press, right? We've been behind ever since that. You know, we've been talking about how we are standing on the promises when many of us are just sitting on the premises, right? We haven't had this real opportunity to really engage people where they are and see what that next generation is really going to be, right? And what is that in terms of higher education? So do I even have a slide? Oh, I do have a slide. Great. So I want to show you a couple things. So I think first of all, and Mo did some of this, so I won't spend too much time, is define what a book really is, right? A book used to be a physical piece of information that you handed to somebody, and once they left, you had no idea what they did with it, right? What is it now? It's an interactive piece of content. It's shareable. It's engaging. It's collaborative, right? It's so many more things. And there's people in this crowd, when they raise their hand, it says, how many of you love to just hold on to a book and just love to have that same feeling of a book? Well, many of us do, right? Well, this isn't the first time that happened, because somebody once said, I'll never get used to the book. I love feeling of unrolling the scroll. You see how well that worked for them, right? So this isn't the first time, right? This isn't the first time that before us we have a real opportunity to engage. And what we're about to talk about here is, think of this. Think of the content distribution networks, right? Think of the Ciscos of the world. Think of the Apples of the world. Think of the hardware that's being put out, the devices by Apple. And all the million devices you're not thinking about all around the world, the Lenovos and the Acers and the Fisher-Price and the Chinese that are putting out 50 million of these devices, that will make Apple look about this big in the scheme of things, right? But what's happening in the middle that nobody's focusing on is the experience. How exactly are you going to look at that content? How are you going to share that? How are you going to read it together? So what I want to show today is just a little bit about what we've been working on. And what we had the unique opportunity to do here on stage and over the last week was actually demo some of our technology with some Torrey's Honor Institute kids here. So we're going to show you some of that right now. So if you guys want to switch over to the iPad for me, I'm going to actually show you guys a little bit of what we've been working on. And I want to show it to you because I want to really say not that we have the answers here, but I want you to think about what if. right? This is the very first step, and anybody that tells you that they know what's going on is lying to you. We have no idea what's going on. We're going to spend millions and billions and trillions of dollars trying to figure it out. Now, I appreciate the guys at Apple not really being able to tell you because they have bosses to report to about what's happening in the publishing world, but Borders going under is just the beginning, right? That was just the Titanic hitting the edge of the iceberg. The real madness is about to begin, right? The publishing world is going to get turned upside down. It won't look like this anymore. I would argue the education world is going to get turned upside down. Bill Gates just recently said the other day is the higher educational institutions as you know them today will not exist in 10 years. That's only 10. Just this year, for the first time, student loans have started to accumulate over $1 trillion in the US. $1 trillion. At what point is a student going to be able to realize, I should not have to go to school for 10 years to dig out of a hole this big, get the same education that I can online for free or pretty close? It's going to change, right? Now listen, I want you to hear something. I am the son of an educator. I'm the son of 2 educators. My mom still works for the State Department of Education. I'm all about we need smarter people, more educated, more talented people that are engaging. But I'm not saying they have to be more accredited. I'm not saying that we need to be more branded. I'm saying that we need to learn how to have a more collaborative education, because when you step out of that classroom, if you're still doing things on a little piece of paper and punching your answers into something, when you step into the corporate world, it looks nothing like that. You are completely unprepared. And so what could that look like? So I just want to show you a little bit of a few possible ways that people and students can learn together. So I want to show you a couple apps. Right here, if you can see this, this is a Tories Honors Institute application. So what we've built here, and to kind of show you from a high level here, is you're probably familiar with the bookshelf look view, right, of how we read books. So our whole idea here is it's 2 worlds that are coming together, the content world and the network and the community of this, right? We say the word social for lack of a better word, right? But what we're really saying is, how do we make this content more engaging and more networked and more tied together? And is that a book? I don't know. I really don't care, right? What I'm calling it's a piece of long-form content. And what we're doing, and what I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on, is how do we wrap a layer of engagement around this long-form content so that it literally comes alive? Example, what's the Bible? Well, you could say the Bible is 66 books all wrapped together as a really long piece of content. I would argue it's a piece of community, because all around the country on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings, people come together to study it together. What if we could really study it together regardless of where we are in the world? So let me show you just a couple things. So you're looking at the bookshelf view right here. You see a couple books that are being downloaded for the Honors Institute to take a look at. But as you'll see, there's also a way of being able to see some other things that are going on. So your bookshelf, your bookstore, your own notes, your profile, things like this. And the reason this is important is we're bringing the social world together with a piece of content. So let's say we open the book Moby Dick. Well, here's the book. Now we're seeing 2 different highlights. One set of highlights are my highlights. Those are the orange ones. The yellow ones are everybody else in my network, right? You know what this means? That means if you're reading on an iPad and you're reading on an iPhone and you're reading on an Android and we all own this book, we're reading it literally together. So what happens is if you see in the bottom right-hand corner that says My Notes and Comments, it shows that there's 10 notes and 16 comments on that page. So when you pull that up, you see the notes and comments that are happening in real time. So Megan, who by the way is brilliant, I'm just saying this because if all Biola students are like this, the world is going to be in very good hands in a few years. She had this comment or the note, and you can see that my first response was interesting thought, because I sat there and read her thought and said, I can't really add any value to this conversation. But what we're doing is we're taking an excerpt of the book and somebody's commenting on it, but because I can see her comments, then I'm adding a layer of comments behind that. And then the other people are lining it up behind it, and what we're doing is creating a conversation around a piece of content, right? We can do this for anything. So you can see, you can change pages, just like you would normally. What if you just want to read this book on your own? You can hide the highlights of everybody else but yourself. What if you want to quickly jump from another chapter? Well, that's pretty simple. I'll just go to that one, chapter 8. What if I wanted to add a new note in here? Well, what if I add a new note like this? And there's 3 things. It says copy, highlight, and share. Well, what if, I'm just talking out loud here, what if we plugged your book into your Facebook or Twitter account so that anytime you shared something, it would automatically share to your Facebook or Twitter or your email account? So when I plug something in there, it cuts the note out of the book with a highlight, and also allows me to put a note in there that just says, hey, test, share this to my Facebook account. Save. That just shared out to my Facebook account. It shared that note, cut the excerpt out with a little plus and minus to give a little context, shows a picture of Moby Dick with a link back for other people to buy the book and join the conversation. I have 1,500 friends that just saw that like that. By the way, you can make your notes private. You can make your books private. You can do anything of that nature. But you know what becomes powerful? If you see on the book, you can see how many notes are on each book. There's a little sticky note that shows you how many notes are happening inside of each book. When somebody comments on one of your notes, it sends you an email, or it pushes out a push notification to your device that draws you back into the conversation. So what happens is now we're starting to get this collaborative education going on, right? People are asking questions. People are answering those questions. Well, what other things can you do? Well, you have profiles. This is my profile. Just shows you, here's my notes, here's some of the books I'm reading, but guess what? I can see Megan's bookshelf too. What if Megan owns books that I don't have? Why can't I just buy them right off her bookshelf? You know what a book is? It's a digital commodity. Without a piece of connection, all it is, it's just dots, it's just words, it's just meaningless. You know how we talk about what's important to us in great books? Somebody tells you, hey, I'm reading this really good book. I'm reading this book called Good to Great. You're like, I need to go buy that book. And so then you take that reference and you go out and buy this book. What we've said is, what if we remove that, right? We always used to say content is king. I would argue that viral content, shareable content is King Kong. Right? Now, all of a sudden, we do not have to there's no boundaries. I mean, do you understand what this means? That means that an institution like Biola is not held by how many seats you put in a classroom. You know what that means? That means institutions will shrink. Face-to-face will become even more of a premium item. People will be able to share this stuff in real time, but we will become smarter faster because we will not just be learning from teachers. Teachers will become a premium item because you will quickly be able to see what teachers are actually teaching this material and how the students are reacting to it. Guess what, teachers? For the first time, you're going to know how many pages a kid's turning in this book. You're going to know if he's read 15% of the book the night before the exam and then he reads 85% the next night. You're going to see how many notes he makes. You're going to see how he shares it. As long as that thing's digitized, we can learn all about the interactions. And guess what this means? This means that my 3-year-old, so when he comes to me and says, Daddy, book, and takes my iPad, when he hits kindergarten and he starts learning like this for the first time, I will literally be able to have data points about his learning from kindergarten through college. Because I will be able to see how he's reading and what he's reading and how he's sharing it. We've never been able to do that. We've never been able to see these things, and this is the first time. It's not just being held by what we can do inside of one book too, right? This is another thing that we've been working on, a book called Year of Our Lord. But as you can see, other content can be put in here as well, right? What stops you from putting a video right inside the book? So that somebody can watch a video at the same time. What stops you from putting audio inside of it? What stops you from creating links inside that book that link out to blogs or link out to other talents or link out to whatever? Right? Is that a book anymore? Maybe. Maybe it is. Can we go back to the slideshow here real quick? So it brings up the question is, as Shakespeare said, that man is held in leash only by his imagination. You know, you're probably asking the question, well, how does he know this is going to happen? Well, I don't know. I'm telling you right now, I do not have all the answers to this. I'm just telling you that some way, shape, or form, this is the vision of where things are going, right? How do I know that? Because I know right now, while we're sitting in rooms as higher education institutions having meetings and getting committees put together. And by the way, did you know, just this is a total side note, but it's kind of valuable to know, like just like a group of lions put together is called a pride, a group of vultures put together is called a committee. Yeah, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying, you know, tell the truth, shame the devil, right? So what's happening now is while we're having all these meetings, you go down to Sand Hill Road and you talk to the venture capitalists and they're pouring billions of dollars into this higher education technology. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out how to make this technology better, but at the end of the day, they can't do it without the people, right? They can't do it without the students. But at the end of the day, it's about collaborative education, right? The No Child Left Behind is by empowering each child to take his own education into his hands, not making every teacher responsible for every child. And this technology can be used in lots of different ways, right? And you can start to just see what those different ways are. So next month, Mo was too humble to say this herself, but she had the vision before she stepped down from Zondervan was next month we're launching the NIV Bible like this. So for the first time, you will be able to read the Bible with one of your friends, two of your friends, 10 of your friends, right? On the back cover of every book of ours, it's a digital back cover, and you can toggle on and off who you're following. You can see how far they've read, any of their additional notes, and the Bible will be digitized and shareable for the first time. What if every university started doing this? What if you just came to the Apple App Store and for the first time, you just looked for the Biola app? You didn't go buy your textbooks, you just simply downloaded them right there. And when you downloaded them for the first time, your suggested followers are your teachers, your other kids in class, things like that. We can do that tomorrow, right? The only thing that the system is waiting on is to see are the institutions going to move. Now, let me just tell you a little bit of history about our own company. One of my founders founded a small company called Snowcap. Most of us don't know that by name. The other name of it behind that was called Napster. So when Napster was taken down by the US government, it rolled into a company called Snowcap. And Snowcap was the first end-to-end digital licensing of music in this country, right? So if you listen to music online, it was licensed from this digital repository called Snowcap. And what the labels said at the time, the label said, we own this content. So if we own this content, what does any, we can make the rules. This technology, it's not going to make the rules. We're going to make the rules. And we can sit here and take all the time we want. How well did that work for music? Or for newspapers? How well do you think it's going to work for books? Peter Thiel, the co-founder of PayPal, had just had an article out this week in TechCrunch that was picked up by the New York Times and a few others that said, there is a bubble that's happening right now, and it's not technology, it's higher education. He's like, it will not survive its current form with students taking on massive loads of debt, going to physical places, and not being then equipped to then have those type of roles that they need going forward. Right? It's the future. So what other things can we do with technology like this? Well, you just heard from Dan Cathy, right? I don't know how many Chick-fil-A's. Let's say there's 50,000 of these around the country. Why can't every Chick-fil-A in the country just have one app that every employee can log in and read its training manual stuff into, right? Why can't they all see it in one place? And by the way, Chick-fil-A corporate that can then see who's read their training manual. Who's highlighted stuff, who's turned pages. If he puts out a new book, he can put it in there and everybody can read it for free. What about this? This is something we're actually working on. 300,000 churches in the country. Every one of them has some type of, I shouldn't say every one, lots of them have their own internal bookstore. Why not give them their own virtual bookstore? Inside of that bookstore, You come to My Home Church in Dallas, Watermark, inside of your Watermark app, all the books that church wants to sell, that church can make money selling on behalf of the publishers, but when you download the Bible for the first time, you automatically follow our pastor. Or if you download a book, Blue Like Jazz, you automatically follow our youth pastor. You start to see notes. You start to create this community around this long-form content, and it happens almost instantaneously. It makes you wonder, are you ever going to go shop for another Christian book again in a store? Now understand something. I think the physical world and the digital world live together, right? I think the physical world will continue to deteriorate as the digital world gets stronger, but I think there's a great place for both of them. So what happens if you're reading on an app like ours, right? You're reading on our app, you're doing the Bible with 4 guys that have been your best friends in their accountability group. You do it for 4 years. You have all these notes in there. You're like, I'd really love to have that Bible. Why can't you just print that Bible with your notes in it and the notes of those 3 other gentlemen in a physical book? And by the way, you can choose the cover. You can choose pictures in there. You can choose the maps. You can choose whatever you want. It's your piece of physical content tailored to you. And this is what we did it for, right? We did it for the Torrey Honors Institute. We just tested it out just for a handful of potential books, but we were amazed to see how the students gravitated to it and how quickly they did, right? See, for the first time, they were able to see each other's notes and learn from each other. Yeah, we can jump in, but as Mo had stated and as they had stated earlier today, we're now not just teachers, we're shepherds. We're facilitators of this. We're allowing them to learn faster on their own. We're not putting ceilings to what they can learn. We're not even keeping them bound by buildings or time. We're allowing them to learn at their own pace and take that education in their future. And personally, from a somewhat selfish standpoint, I look at this as what happens if we can do this in other parts of the world. How much could other students in Africa learn from Biola students if they could see your notes? Right? It's not just the teachers they're learning from the actual students. You're learning something about them, they're learning something about you. And we're talking right now just about text, but what if the next step is, hey, we can wrap other videos or pictures around any type of note you put on top of that context? We're talking about a collaborative education. And in general, we're just talking about education. How are we going to be educated, and how are we going to educate our kids going forward? You know, I have a particular interest in this, of course. I have two kids at home. I have a beautiful baby boy by the name of Rain, as in the Lord reigns. He's 3 years old. And I have my little girl, Sissy, Sage, and she's 15 months, and she now runs the house. Beautiful kids. And I see how fast they're picking up technology, right? They're born, they're natives in this. My son can't read yet, he's 3, right? But of the 1,000 songs I have on my iPhone, he can go to each one if I just tell him which song to go find. Right? When he says, Daddy, go read, he goes from my iPad. I see my daughter, who's, 15 months, being able to open up an iPhone and put it up to her ear, right? And try to learn how to push the buttons so that she can video and see Daddy when Daddy's gone. That's the type of education that we're going to have to prepare them for the world that they live in. Because much like they said today in the Cisco presentation, they may get up in the morning and have a Bible study with somebody in Nairobi and Paris and Tokyo and Dallas, Texas, and then they may not even leave to the office, but then have their next conference call with somebody in California through telepresence, be studying a document with 5 other people simultaneously, and have the video put into the iPad at the same time. That is the world that they will live in. They will not know any different, right? You know who the real challenge is for? It's for us. Because we weren't born like this. We have to learn how to adapt. And there's 2 ways you can look at this, right? The glass half full, the glass half empty type of people. Some of you are going to go away from this becoming landowners, right? Plantation owners. How do I guard my area of land for as long as I can? The end is inevitable. I'll just guard it as long as possible. The other one, they're going to be that believe in transformation. What an opportunity the Lord has provided for us. We often talk about taking this to the ends of the earth. Now we literally can. We can literally take what we believe and what we see and what we hear to the ends of the earth. And that can transform us as a culture and as a people. And to me, that's exciting. Even if there's not $1 in this, as the capitalist in me, if there's not $1 in this, but there is that opportunity to educate and transform lives and change lives, then maybe, just maybe, then we'll get a little bit of that hearing back that sometimes we've lost. So, thank you guys.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.